Hi everyone, this is Adam Kirtley, the chaplain here at Whitman. I hope this message finds you well. This has been a really tough week in a lot of ways. This is the ninth week that I've done one of these um, moments of reflection in the midst of our isolation. The COVID news is nonstop. The possibility of real dire financial situations, I think, is on everyone's mind. In addition to staying healthy, I've been in conversations with both Whitman colleagues and then also chaplain colleagues from around the country who are heavily engaged in conversations of what a fall semester might look like. There's so much caution moving into what it could mean to bring students back into our community and to campus communities all over the country. So on one hand, my ears are filled with these conversations, and then on the other, there's just seems to be a segment of our society that has decided that this is done, and that they are going to be living their lives with some semblance of normalcy, and certainly understand that motivation, but I worry about it as well, um, and been thinking so much about what that could look like for us. Another thing that I've been thinking about this week is the fact that the tragedy that started our school year this year with the murder of colleague and friend and mentor Kyle Martz has been back in the news as um, uh, the person accused of taking his life has been arraigned and prosecuted, and a plea deal was struck, and that has raised, I think, real questions about justice, not just questions about sort of the justice system, but more existential questions about justice, and so my heart is heavy, and thinking about those of you who are suffering. In the various ways that sort of news and life have unfolded this week. Um, uh, this area back here is very unkempt, but it's a cherished part of where I live. It's my backyard, and I'm going to take you on a tour in a second to show you the pond in the backyard. The pond was here before we arrived. When we purchased the house, it was so grown over that we didn't actually recognize that it was there until we pulled some things away, and we've filled it with water a few years ago, and a little pump that circulates a tiny little waterfall. Um, this is about 5 or 6 years ago that we got it up and running, but then about 3 years ago, we were out here for dinner one night and heard incredibly loud, heard a frog chirping. We've never seen the frog. My youngest daughter says that she's seen it, but none of the rest of us have ever seen it. Although we go stand next to the pond when it's chirping, and it feels like it must be obviously visible, obviously right in our faces, but it is so well camouflaged and hidden. I've thought about the how this frog found its way to 635 University Street. I mean, I hear these frogs at other properties in our neighborhood, but what was it like for this frog to somehow venture out on his own and find his way to our pond? And of course, I'm anthropomorphizing. Of course, there are people on this listening to this who know far more about frogs than I do. But I've always been struck by what it took for this individual to make its way from wherever it was to our pond. And of course, the other thing is that this solo frog has reemerged every spring since, chirping into the night. And in my mind, it's the same frog. A person who knows more about frogs might tell me that's impossible, but I've developed this sort of relationship with this creature. And I've often assumed that what he was chirping for was a little bit of companionship. And one evening we were out having dinner just a week or two ago, and we heard the frog start its evening chirp, and then suddenly we heard a second frog. There were now two, And I was, our whole family started clapping and cheering that the frog had found a companion, had found a friend. And we walked back to look for the now frogs, and and heard from the vicinity of our backyard, but what sounded like maybe 20 or 30 feet away from the pond, another frog, ostensibly making his way to his new friends. And so there's a little bit of me that considers the story of these pond frogs as a story of courage, and to make their way here, a story of of hope, and a story of patience. And for this little colony, it has seemed to have paid off, and I am trying to be reminded of lessons anywhere I can find them. And this week I'm finding them in the back corner of my yard as I listen to these frogs singing out into the darkness, in hopes that they may be heard. So I'm going to take you and show you the pond. Maybe he'll even chirp for us when we get back there. I hope you all are okay, are doing well. I look forward to seeing you. Please take care of yourselves and each other. Let's go see the frog. Well, it looks like he's not going to sing for us now. Maybe some other time. Take care.